Courtroom 3 at the Cook County Courthouse in Chicago was packed that morning. Lawyers, staff, and members of the public had gathered for what appeared to be a simple civil hearing, nothing too sensational. Outside in the hallway, Officer Ethan Doyle, a white man in his 40s, stood with arms crossed, scanning every black woman who passed with a look of suspicion tinged with disdain. He had been assigned to maintain security for the courtroom today, a job he took seriously, perhaps too seriously. Ethan was notorious for abusing his authority, especially toward minorities. A black woman in a tailored gray suit approached. She carried a slim leather briefcase and walked with calm confidence. Her posture was dignified, her expression composed and focused. This was Dr. Amara Whitfield, fresh from an international legal conference in Geneva. But to Ethan, she was just some overdressed black woman trying to look important. He stepped in front of her with a cold tone. "Where do you think you're going? This isn't a sightseeing tour. There's a high-profile hearing today, so stay clear." Amara raised an eyebrow but stayed calm. "I have an official invitation to attend the hearing. If you'll excuse me, I'm in a hurry." Ethan scoffed. "An invitation, huh? Just because you're dressed nice doesn't mean you can fool me. Show me your ID now, or I'll have to escort you out." A few people nearby began to turn and look. Another officer, Lieutenant Miguel Sanchez, stood nearby, frowning. He started to step in, but Amara gently raised her hand to stop him. "What's your name?" she asked, still composed. "I'm Officer Doyle. And I'm just doing my job," he replied, his voice growing sharper. Amara calmly reached into her case, took out a badge, and held it up to his face. "Then I'm very sorry to inform you, Officer Doyle. I am the Deputy Director of Federal Court Administration for Cook County. I'm here to observe the proceedings under a direct order from the Chief Office. And if I'm not mistaken, you report directly under my jurisdiction." The hallway fell completely silent. Ethan froze. His face turned bright red, his mouth slightly open, unable to speak. Lieutenant Sanchez quickly stepped forward, bowed slightly, and ordered Doyle to step aside. A few observers quietly pulled out their phones to record the moment. No one had expected that the woman Ethan had just harassed was someone who had the power to transfer, or suspend, his entire career. And karma was only beginning. That same afternoon, Dr. Amara Whitfield walked into her office on the 7th floor of the Federal Building in downtown Chicago. It was a modest but elegant room, clean, efficient, and organized, just like her. On her desk was a thick, sealed file, stamped in red. "Doyle case, submitted by Internal Affairs Unit." Amara removed her jacket, sat down, and began to read. Her brows furrowed just a few pages in. Officer Ethan Doyle, 16 years of service. 11 complaints filed, ranging from racial discrimination to excessive force and intimidation of minorities. 8 dismissed, 3 inconclusive. No formal disciplinary action recorded. Amara sighed. She had heard of officers like Doyle, embedded in the system, shielded by silence, fear, or connections. But now, he had crossed a critical line, abusing power directly in front of his superior. She pressed the intercom. "Joy, connect me to the Inspector General's office, and initiate a review of Rapid Response Unit 7's conduct over the past 3 years." "Right away, ma'am. Right now. Also, bring me all behavior logs and incident reports involving Officer Ethan Doyle over the last 5 years." Meanwhile, over at the 7th District Police Precinct, Ethan sat stiffly in the break room. The atmosphere was tense. A fellow officer, Kyle Becker, walked in. "What the hell happened out there?" Kyle asked, half joking. "I don't know, man. Some black chick in a fancy suit. Thought she was trespassing. Turns out she's some big boss or something." "Big boss. Name's Amara Whitfield. It's bad news, man." Before he could finish, the break room door opened. An officer from Internal Affairs entered with a blank expression. "Officer Doyle, you have 24 hours to prepare for a formal inquiry. Hand over your badge, firearm, and access credentials. You're under immediate suspension. Orders from Deputy Director Amara Whitfield." The room went silent. Ethan stood up, his face pale. He had nothing to say. Back on the 7th floor, Amara took a sip of her tea. Her eyes were not triumphant, just resolute. She wasn't interested in punishing one man. She intended to clean out the system that protected him. 3 days after Ethan Doyle's suspension, the atmosphere at the federal courthouse in Chicago had shifted. People walked more quietly in the halls. Conversations were hushed. Everyone had heard the story of the black executive who got a cop benched in under 5 minutes, but no one realized that was just the beginning. Inside her office, Dr. Amara Whitfield sat reviewing a complex web of internal personnel charts, officer names, violation counts, case reviewers, supervisors, and, most telling, complaints that had been buried. Kyle Becker. He was assigned to review 3 of Doyle's complaints. And all 3 were dismissed without sufficient justification, she muttered. She tapped her desk lightly, connecting the dots. The more she examined, the clearer the pattern became. There was a system protecting officers like Doyle, and at the center of it was Lieutenant Kyle Becker, Doyle's closest confidant. Amara called for an emergency meeting with representatives from Internal Affairs, the Office of the Inspector General, and the Department of Professional Ethics. When the meeting began, she placed a thick binder on the table. "I want an explanation." 11 complaints against Officer Doyle, none of them properly resolved. "Why?" Silence. An older official finally sighed. "Deputy Director Whitfield, I won't lie. There's been an unspoken agreement over the years. Certain captains, lieutenants, and even internal auditors look out for their own. People don't want to touch cases involving protected names." Amara didn't flinch. She flipped a page and looked up. "If I escalate this to the federal level and make it public, will any of you be prepared to testify under oath?" No response. Hours later, Amara stepped out of the boardroom knowing one thing for sure. She couldn't dismantle this system using traditional methods. She needed someone who knew the law, understood the internal rot, and wasn't afraid to challenge it from the outside. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Elijah, I need you." On the other end, a deep voice replied. "You called. I'm coming." "When and where?" "Tonight. I'm about to go to war." That evening, at a quiet cafe in Hyde Park, warm lights glowed over the composed, sharp features of Elijah Moore, a former Internal Affairs investigator turned independent civil rights attorney. He had resigned years ago, disillusioned by systemic corruption. And it was Amara Whitfield who had once encouraged him to fight the system from the outside, not within its walls. As Amara entered, Elijah stood and shook her hand. "I saw the headlines. You didn't call me just because of Doyle." Amara nodded. "No. I called because I believe this system is rotting from the inside, and I need someone unbound by silence to investigate it." Elijah sipped his espresso, then opened his laptop. "I've been tracking Doyle for over a year. I requested behavior records from Districts 7 and 9, all denied under internal confidentiality." "You know what that means?" "It means someone's protecting him." "Probably several people," Amara replied. He opened a folder filled with recordings, screenshots, and internal memos. One video played, Doyle yelling at a 14-year-old black teen in a holding room, no lawyer, no guardian present. This case was scrubbed from the database. "I got it from a former IT staffer. The boy's name is Terrell Mason. After this, he dropped out of school and was later diagnosed with PTSD, noted in his psych file as complete loss of faith in justice." Amara stared at the screen, silent. "Elijah, I want to form an independent legal task force. You'll be the first member. I'll use my authority to make sure our evidence can't be tampered with." Elijah gave a small smile. "I've never said no to you, Amara. But this time, we're not just going after one officer. We're going after a web of protection. Captains, inspectors, maybe even someone sitting in the mayor's office." "Good," Amara said, her eyes fierce. "Because I don't plan to stop halfway." Monday morning. Dr. Amara Whitfield's office had never been busier. Printers whirred non-stop. Phones rang endlessly. A small team of legal experts and investigators had gathered, most of them people of color, former system insiders now willing to stand on the side of truth. Across town, Elijah Moore was working from his private office when he received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "Be careful. They know you're investigating." Attached was a photo taken from inside the District 7 police station's security camera. It showed Kyle Becker seated with 3 unidentified men, all looking serious. On the table, a printed file with Elijah's name and his home address. Elijah didn't panic, but his eyes narrowed. He immediately called Amara. "They know I'm involved, and they're starting to move." "We're not backing down," Amara replied firmly. "I'll assign protection to you. But we need to strike before they go further." Amara knew that the closer they got to the center of the network, the more she became a target. But she wasn't alone. That same day, her team uncovered a hidden audio recording from 2021, capturing Lieutenant Kyle Becker ordering the erasure of evidence from a police brutality case. The file had been secretly preserved by a former IT staffer named Laney Fields, who had resigned after receiving threats. Amara reached out to Laney immediately. Laney was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed to meet at a secure location. In a small diner in Chicago's South Loop, Laney, a white woman in her early 30s, arrived visibly tense. "I know releasing this audio could get me in trouble, but if it helps you expose them..." Amara nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Laney's shoulder. "Laney, we'll protect you. But you've just become the key witness in a federal investigation." At that very moment, inside the District 7 police station, a closed-door meeting was underway. Kyle Becker stood before a small group of senior officers. "If we don't shut this down soon, the entire structure collapses. Whitfield is digging too deep." Someone else asked, "What about Moore?" "He's being watched. But we need to make this clear: either they stop, or they get taken down." 3 days after the meeting with Laney Fields, Amara Whitfield stood at a podium in the Chicago Federal Courthouse's press conference room. Behind her were the American flag, the Illinois state flag, and a group of legal professionals, including Elijah Moore. Media had been invited in advance. Local news crews, national outlets, radio stations, all were present. No one knew exactly what Amara would reveal, only that it concerned serious violations within law enforcement. The room fell silent as Amara began. "Today, I speak not just as a public official, but as a citizen. Someone who once believed the system could correct itself. It doesn't." She held up a small black audio recorder. "This is an internal audio recording from 2021, in which a police lieutenant orders the deletion of a report involving officer misconduct against an innocent civilian. That act is a federal crime." She pressed play. Kyle Becker's voice filled the room. "Delete it. I don't care if he stomped the guy, as long as no one filmed it. Don't let Doyle take the fall." A wave of gasps rippled through the room. Cameras flashed. Reporters shot up from their seats. "Deputy Director, are you recommending prosecution?" "I'm not recommending," Amara said, voice unwavering. "I'm formally preparing criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. And I'm naming every individual involved." Elijah stepped forward. "We will represent the victims. And we're building a class action lawsuit against District 7 and every official who helped bury the truth." That night, the recording went viral online. Hashtags like #ExposeBecker, #JusticeForTerrell, and #WhitfieldTruth surged to the top of national trending lists. Protests erupted across Chicago, especially in South Side and Englewood, communities that had long suffered in silence. At District 7 HQ, tension was thick. Kyle Becker stared at a TV screen replaying the press conference, jaw clenched. An officer walked in. "Media's swarming the gates. Some staff are requesting transfers." Becker cut him off. "Call Judge Ralston. I want an emergency injunction to stop Whitfield from releasing more files." "Sir, the data's already been sent to federal agencies. We can't pull it back." Becker slammed his fist on the desk. Meanwhile, in Amara's home, she and Elijah meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, ensuring triple backups, verified documentation, and legal timestamps. Elijah spoke softly. "You know they'll come after your character next. Smears, threats, whatever it takes." Amara looked at the computer screen. Under the cool light of her desk lamp, her eyes were steady, focused. "Let them come, Elijah. I'm not afraid. Because this time, I'm not alone, and justice is finally on our side." The morning after the press conference, Amara Whitfield's name was everywhere, not just in justice reform circles, but splashed across national media. Most headlines praised her bravery. But others were different. By noon, several anonymous blogs and fringe news sites began circulating an old, heavily edited photo of Amara in college, dancing at a party, surrounded by friends. The headline read, "Deputy Director or Radical Activist." Leaked photos raise questions about Amara Whitfield's past. Soon after, another story appeared, this time from a well-funded political outlet. Breaking: court official linked to controversial donations during law school years. None of it was illegal. None of it even unethical. But the goal was clear: to smear her credibility, to shift the narrative, to plant doubt. At her office, Amara sat at her desk, staring at the stories. She didn't look angry. She looked prepared. Elijah entered with a tablet in hand. "They've mobilized. The media attacks are coming in waves. Someone's feeding them info." "Of course," Amara replied calmly. "The network we exposed isn't just inside the police department. It has reach. It has protectors." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, protesters had gathered, but they were there for her. Signs read, "We stand with Whitfield, clean the system," and "Justice can't be silenced." Amara turned back to Elijah. "I'm not here to win popularity contests. I'm here to finish what we started. And they just told me exactly where to hit next." Elijah nodded, handing her a flash drive. "This is the list of financial ties between Lieutenant Becker and a few city council members. Contracts, grants, private security kickbacks. It's deep." Amara took it, eyes sharpening. "Then it's time we stop playing defense." Meanwhile, at a luxury office building in the Loop, a private meeting was underway. Kyle Becker sat across from Councilman Robert Lansing, a slick politician with a nervous twitch. "You said this would go away," Lansing hissed. "I said I'd handle her," Becker growled. "But she's 10 moves ahead. She's not alone. And now she's targeting the money." Lansing stood and paced. "If she connects us to those contracts, it's not just you losing a badge. It's indictments. Federal ones." Becker leaned back. "Then you better start pulling strings, Robert. Judges, media, donors, shut her down before she opens that vault." Back in Amara's office, her team was already preparing their next move, a formal referral to the FBI and a press release revealing suspected financial corruption linked to Chicago's District 7 leadership. Her assistant stepped in. "Ma'am, 2 federal agents from the DOJ just arrived downstairs. They want to speak. Immediately." Amara looked at Elijah, then calmly picked up her coat. "Let's see how deep this rabbit hole really goes." The Department of Justice agents were waiting in a private conference room on the 9th floor of the federal courthouse. When Amara Whitfield and Elijah Moore entered, they were greeted by 2 sharply dressed individuals who introduced themselves as Special Agent Miriam Chase and Senior Investigator Alan Wu, both from the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. Agent Chase got straight to the point. "We've been watching the developments around District 7. We've also been monitoring Becker for over a year. But what you've uncovered, audio recordings, whistleblowers, financial trails, gives us cause for formal federal inquiry." Elijah leaned forward. "We're ready to hand everything over. We've cross-referenced names, bank transfers, and even campaign donations. This isn't just police corruption. It's public fraud." Agent Wu nodded, opening a secure laptop. "We agree. But we need to warn you both. Since your press conference, 2 witnesses involved in previous complaints against Doyle have gone missing. Their families are afraid to speak." Amara's hands clenched slightly. "Are you saying someone's actively silencing people?" "We're saying," Chase replied, "that whatever you've stepped into, it's not just local. This web has ties to state-level enablers. And someone's desperate to keep it quiet." Elijah and Amara exchanged a long look. Then Amara spoke. "So what are you going to do?" Wu answered. "Formally, we'll open a Civil Rights Division case within 72 hours. Unofficially, we're assigning you both federal protection until we know who's pulling the strings." Amara smiled faintly, but her voice was steel. "I'm not afraid of them. But I won't let anyone else get hurt. Let's move." Back at District 7, Kyle Becker received a confidential call from a source inside the state capitol. "They've gone to the DOJ, Kyle. You've got less than 3 days." Becker slammed the phone down, his pulse rising. The walls were closing in. He looked at a locked cabinet in the corner of his office. Inside were files, backups, and a black envelope marked "in case of total collapse." He called Councilman Lansing. "We're out of time. If you have dirt on her, release it. Anything." Lansing hesitated. "There's one thing. Old family case. Sealed court records. I'll pull them tonight." Becker's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do it. We're not going down because of a woman who thinks she's untouchable." That night, Amara received an anonymous package at her home. No sender. No return address. Inside, a copy of a sealed court file from 20 years ago, involving her late father, a respected judge. The front page had a red sticker. "Confidential, allegation of misconduct, Judge Richard Whitfield." Amara sat down slowly. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but fury. The phone rang. Elijah's voice came through. "They're going after your father now?" Amara's voice was cold. "They think this will shake me. It won't. They just lit the fuse." The next morning, the media exploded with a new wave of headlines. Amara Whitfield's father, former judge accused of ethics violations in 2003? Justice reformer's family under scrutiny. What is Amara Whitfield hiding? Slick political blogs and high-end tabloids latched onto one phrase: unsealed court records. No one knew what the files contained, but that didn't matter. The goal was to cast doubt. At home, Amara Whitfield held the anonymous court file copy sent the night before. Her eyes froze at a familiar name: Judge Richard Whitfield, her late father, once a trailblazing black judge in Cook County. The document described a decades-old allegation from a losing litigant, dismissed for lack of merit, no criminal charges, no violation found. The matter had been quietly archived. But now, someone had weaponized it. Elijah Moore stepped in from the back patio, coffee in hand. "They've played the family card." Amara nodded slightly. "They think this will make me waver. I pity them, Elijah. They don't know who my father was." She went to her bookshelf and pulled out a folder, her father's last handwritten letter before his passing. It read, "My daughter, if one day you are forced to confront the darkness of this system, remember, what they fear most isn't truth. It's a woman who knows how to wield it." Amara folded the letter carefully, then picked up her phone. "Get me CNN. I want a live interview. And this time, I'm not just talking about cops." That evening, the nation tuned in as Amara appeared live on television. The host asked directly, "Deputy Director Whitfield, can you confirm your father was once under internal investigation?" Amara looked directly into the camera. "Yes. And I also confirm that he was fully cleared. But here's the real question. Why, when I call out corruption, the first thing they do is dig up a dead man's file?" She paused. "I'm not afraid of personal attacks. I'm afraid of the next generation watching me be silenced and thinking they shouldn't try. Do you have anything you'd like to say to Lieutenant Kyle Becker or those trying to smear your name?" Amara smiled. "I'll see them, not on television, but on the witness stand. Chicago Federal Court. Friday, 8 a.m. Outside, hundreds gathered. Signs read, 'No more silence. We stand with Whitfield. Dismantle the shield.'" Inside, Deputy Director Amara Whitfield entered with her usual calm, flanked by Elijah Moore, lead counsel for the victims and witnesses. They had officially filed federal criminal charges against Lieutenant Kyle Becker, Officer Ethan Doyle, and 3 others tied to the cover-up. A special federal grand jury had been summoned. In the preliminary hearing, the prosecutor laid it out. "This isn't speculation. We have voice recordings ordering the destruction of evidence, suspicious financial transfers, IT whistleblower testimony, and forged documents." When Kyle Becker was named, he entered the courtroom with his private attorney, face pale, no longer defiant. The court played the infamous audio clip again. Silence fell. Then Terrell Mason, once a 14-year-old boy wrongfully detained by Doyle, took the stand. Now 17, tall and composed, his voice trembled but was steady. I used to think the law was something to fear. No. I'm studying it. I want to be like Ms. Amara one day." The room erupted in applause. The judge banged the gavel to restore order, but the message had landed. Justice was no longer a weapon of the powerful. 3 weeks later, the DOJ issued its findings. Kyle Becker, indicted on 7 counts, including abuse of authority, evidence tampering, and federal corruption. Ethan Doyle, charged with racial discrimination, unlawful detention, and abuse of power. 2 senior City Hall officials, suspended and under active investigation for conspiracy. District 7 Police Department, placed under federal monitoring for 18 months. At a national ceremony for civil rights champions, Amara was awarded the Federal Medal of Justice. As she stepped up to the podium, she didn't speak of victory. She spoke of vision. "I don't care if they call me brave or divisive. I just want every black child to walk into a courtroom without bowing their head. I want victims to know the law is not their enemy. And I want every abuser in power to understand, the age of silence is over."